Yes.
All right, first agenda item is comments from the public. We have one person signed up today. Dr. Lisa Conley, please.
Sorry about all the noise. I've got a lot of keys to carry around on the teaching day. Good afternoon. I hope everybody is doing well and surviving the humidity outside and inside. I'm here today in my capacity as president of AFT Local 212 to draw attention to a communication the board received earlier today from Local 212's Executive Vice President Dwayne Schlund, who is unable to be here today. It's also a teaching day for him. Dwayne sends his regards and invites you to reach out to him directly if you have questions or concerns related to the update I'm going to share with you in case you haven't read it yet on the current state of lead faculty summer release time support, usually referred to as ZANSL, and invites any board members to contact him directly with related comments, questions, or concerns. So here's the letter in case you haven't had a chance to read it. MATC board members. The issue of ZANSL, aka non-teaching release time, was brought to your attention during the last academic year. At the February 27th board meeting, Dr. Dockwar and I gave an update that good progress regarding ZANSL processes had been made, but there was still work to do regarding summer ZANSL, aka release time. Unfortunately, it's been brought to our attention that ZANSL for program leads has not been consistently available in all pathways for necessary work over the summer to maintain programs that run classes during the summer term, or that must continuously maintain disposables or equipment. As a result, many lead faculty are once again being forced to complete this work without compensation, or they risk jeopardizing the program's accreditation and or standing. We at Local 212 continue to find this practice unacceptable. Program maintenance over the summer months is crucial for most programs and helps to maintain student enrollment and engagement. While some faculty are receiving this paid release time, known as ZANSL, for this work, too many we have found are not. We see the best path forward as being a recommendation made by a ZANSL committee 2 summers ago. That recommendation is that all lead faculty who are maintaining programs and or program accreditation over the summer receive a base level of release time compensation, and that the college budgets for those dollars, as an operational expense. From Dwayne, thank you for your time and consideration. And again, you're invited to reach out to him, and he apologizes again for not being able to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for addressing the board and sharing your concerns. The board will not be responding to any matter in adherence to the state of Wisconsin open meeting law, which prevents a governmental body from discussing any specific item that was not publicly noticed on the agenda. Our next agenda item is approval of minutes. We have 3 meetings worth of minutes. I would entertain a motion to approve them all and then see if there's any specific discussion. Is there a motion to approve the 3 sets of minutes, the regular board meeting of May 28th, the public hearing on the budget June 18, and the special board meeting of June 18?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. We have a motion by Director Owen Moore and by a second by Director Moore Omakundi. I keep trying to take out the double Moores. My brain freezes with that. Are there any questions or discussions about the minutes for any of these 3 meetings? There being none, we have a motion and a second. Would all those in favor of approving the minutes as submitted indicate that by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I'm gonna abstain because I was absent.
Fine, thank you. The motion passes. Next is approval of consent agenda items. Can I have a motion to approve all the consent agenda items except category 4B, the financial report? I'm going to ask that we address that separately today. So is there a motion to approve the other consent agenda items, the May bills, the human resources report, and the procurement report?
Mr. Chair, I'll move approval of the consent agenda minus item B.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? We have a motion by Director Baker, a second by Director Burris. Would all those in favor of approving those three consent agenda items indicate that by saying aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, those consent agenda items are approved. I've asked Jeff Hollow, our financial consultant. Why don't you come up and explain to us the differences between this report and the one that we saw last time and what we're doing about those differences, please.
Sure.
I should ask for a motion before we continue to approve the financial report and a second so that we can then discuss it. Is there a motion to approve the financial report?
So moved. I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by Director Case and a second by Director Baker. Mr. Hollow, please.
Hello, thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure to be up here to explain this. If we look at, this is the financial statement, it's through May, and it's comparing through May last year, and it has last year full year financial statements on the left-hand side. And we have year-to-date actual May for this year and the full year budget right next to it. Now, when we look at this, we look at if you look at surplus or deficit, you can see there was a deficit last year of about roughly $2.6 million. And this year it's about close to, it's $9.5 million. And so it's worthy of an explanation. One of the things I'd like to mention is that we still have a state aid check that has not been applied, and that's roughly $3 million that will be helping with that, to cover that $9.5 million that we're seeing at the bottom. We have 1.5 million of what we call strategic reserves. This helps with students who have bad debt or have an issue, have a balance outstanding with the college. That's not applied here yet. And one of the drivers of the higher expense this year versus the budget is you look at fringe benefits. You can see there's about $43.5 million of year-to-date expenses, and that's primarily driven by healthcare claims. The claims are significantly higher this year versus previous year. And we're about 10%, roughly 9.5% above budget year-to-date of the full year budget, I should say. And so there's going to be another expense in June. One of the things we did several years ago is we've joined the consortium, and the consortium helps us out. They have stop loss. So they also have what they call stop loss support, where when you get above a certain amount of loss, the consortium pitches in. You know, if any particular college has high claims like we do this year, that's one area, but that has not been applied yet. There's pooling. So we pool expenses, and we also have prescription rebates that have not been applied yet. So those three areas are going to help us out, but I don't know that it would cover the entire amount of the claims that we have. So we also have, over the years, if you've been here, you know of the OPEB trust. We have a $57 million OPEB trust. I think that was the balance as of the last quarter. We have 57 million. So what that does is pays for, OPEB stands for other post-employment benefits. So those people who are retired, this is that eventually the goal is to fund that fully for any potential liability that we have. But we have, and typically when we have better years than we have financially than we have this year, we paid that out of the general fund or the other funds that the employees retired from. So if they were retired from PBS or they retired from a different fund other than Fund 1, those funds would be able to help cover the cost. Most of our retirees are from the general fund, so we covered most of that with excess general fund unspent payments. So what we did is we looked at if we needed to pull from the trust to help close this gap. We have $5.7 million of expenses from retirees this year that would have impacted the general fund. So the bottom line is the 3 million of revenue that's not been posted, the 1.5 million of strategic reserves that has not been posted. All the other items within the healthcare area that we have not received benefit from yet. And also the 5.7 million of OPEB trust. At July 15, the numbers stop moving, and but we'll true this up. We'll minimize the amount from the OPEB trust that we would take. We'll use up all the other, obviously we'll balance with the other things, hopefully. And to the extent that there's still not balanced, we will balance with 5.7 million available for OPEB trust. So I just wanted to make sure that that helps explain that significant variance this year versus last year.
Director Baker.
I really appreciate that explanation, seriously. And it, you know, if all my colleagues aren't familiar, the OPEB trust is about healthcare. So the individuals who still are eligible for retiree healthcare, that's what that covers. Like people who work here get their pension from the state Wisconsin retirement system. So it's not about pension, it's about the healthcare, which we stopped providing for our retirees as of some year around 2013, I think.
Yes,
Anyone who started after that.
yeah, I think it was 2013. Because
Yeah,
I started in 2014 and I was not eligible.
There you go. So somewhere around that, but at any rate, so, and I'm just gonna, having been here during the period of time when we were setting up the OPEB trust and understanding the regulations that, you know, govern that and why we have to do it. Just in your mind, realize that the college is supposed to bank enough money to cover the retirees' benefits forever that they might live. It's like a guess. How long will all of the individuals who retired, who were employed with us before 2013, you know, what will they need? It is seriously this huge amount of money that we have managed to put aside, you know, a considerable amount of. But as you just explained to us, most of the time we pay as we go. Most of the time, we really don't need to tap into that. We're able to take care of it as we always did before legislation made us set up the OPEB fund. So you know, I truly appreciate your explanation, and I am delighted that we might be able to put some of that fund to good use rather than it just sitting there too.
Any other questions? Or
So,
Director Pence, we'll start with you.
so this is a fund just for healthcare. Correct?
Retiree.
Retiree healthcare, and it's just for the school. It's not a statewide. Okay. And
But
it's
if I could,
benefits-
every school has, everybody has to have, MPS has to have one. Is it, it's just public sector? OPEB? Yeah, so every public sector entity.
And it's more or less a self-funded healthcare plan.
No, it's
It-
more like under the ERISA laws, like pension funding, where
Okay.
like coming out of Enron, where companies weren't funding retirement benefits appropriately, the law stepped in and said, you've got to have enough money in there to cover every single possible person that may need it at any given time. So it's hugely expensive for companies. That's why pensions a lot of times go away, because it's the same thing for a company, but it's the same concept.
Right, so, and it's, we're already self-funded in our healthcare, and that's the consortium we participate in. This fund is just there to cover retiree healthcare. Because we have to have it there, and, you know, we have to guess how much we might need, and as you pointed out, we never use it. It sits there because we cover it pretty much as we go, and we rarely use it.
But it's gaining interest.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is true.
Director Case, did you have a question?
Yeah, and this might not be all you, but when I look at our budget for healthcare for this year, clearly we overspent what we budgeted
Mhm.
and actuals versus budget. With that in mind and the continued rising costs of healthcare, are we adjusting that for next year so that we don't end up in a spot where we're over our budget?
I'm glad Eve was here. I can just make a comment that it was considered, and I believe there is an adjustment, but typically you have these outlier years where you have the claims, or you have a lot of people who might be retiring and get a lot of services done just before they retire, but Eva, do you have anything to add to that as well?
Sure, we are looking at our plan design, and we are looking at, all aspects of that and looking for savings and looking for places where we can also bring in additional wellness types of programs for the college to address that. Yeah, it really has swung quite steeply this year, and it has been stable and, growing over the years, but never like this year. So yes, there is a plan. So finance will work in collaboration with HR.
But if I'm reading this correctly, we budgeted for 22 to 23, we budgeted 42 million. And then for this year, we only budgeted 39 million. So we budgeted less. I mean, we underspent last year, but we lowered our budget. So my concern is, are we adjusting that going forward so that we're not having a deficit and overspending our actuals aren't exceeding our budget? Because I mean, I don't foresee the budget there going down.
We did have, so we have a Fund 6, which all of our expenses for healthcare run through Fund 6. And prior to being in the consortium, we had reserves sitting in Fund 6 that were still there. So I believe that part and that's what will be used, that's going to also be used to help fund this gap. It hasn't been applied to it yet because but we had excess reserves from Fund 6 that were available prior to joining the consortium.
Yeah, I think the question's a little different, though. I think
Right.
she's asking going forward. So when we look at the 24-25 budget, and whatever the line item might be, we're gonna get to that budget in a few agenda items later. The question, and maybe we should do it there, is to look at the budget there and to see whether we have increased the budget for the next year. Or kept it the same, or what did we do, given how much we missed? It's nobody's fault that we have a miss here, but we have a big miss here, and the question is, what are we doing for planning purposes next year? So let's address that when we get to the budget.
Fair.
Director Mendia Ramos?
Yeah, you mentioned at the beginning that there's a state check that hasn't been applied. Did you mention the amount? Or about? Do
It's
you have an idea?
it's roughly $3 million, so
Okay.
it's equal to the budget. The budget that we have there is 84,051,527, and the year-to-date actual through May is 80,998,509. So it's roughly 3 million, slightly
Okay.
higher than $3 million and that happens every year. We get it at typically the end of June, and I'm not sure if we've received it yet, but
Yeah, just didn't catch the amount. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
Dr. Najib?
Yeah, thank you again for your explanation. Could you explain to me also the relationship between we just celebrated a balanced budget last board meeting, and now we say there's deficit. What the relationship now between these two?
This is financial statements through May. Maybe I'm misinterpreting your question, but this is the actual statements through May. We go through the end of June. So we do have some things to do. We'll have expenses in June, but we'll also have some opportunities to help close the gap.
Yeah, I did not understand it. When we said we had a balanced budget last meeting, balanced budget, that means we don't have any deficit.
That is correct.
So what, now we're saying there's deficit, $9 million.
The deficit will go away with the items that I mentioned that will help cover the incremental costs that we have.
Yeah, but how come we did not know about it last meeting? We said we had balanced budget. I don't know if there's a relationship or not. Maybe I'm not understanding it.
At the last meeting, we were talking about the proposed budget for the next fiscal year and whether that would be balanced.
That is balanced.
And not that this year's budget was balanced,
We will balance this.
but it
year's
will be
budget.
by the end of the fiscal year.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought Dr. Martin was proud of herself that she gave us a balanced budget, right?
We figured
So
out how to balance the budget.
I'm confused now.
We will have a balanced budget.
Okay.
We're just not, we haven't recorded all of our revenue. We haven't recorded all of our expenses for the month of June.
Yeah, we got
And at the
one.
end of June, That's the end of our fiscal year. So we still have time to,
Director Baker.
And to be fair, it is, when I would always take a look at the HR report, and a lot of people, especially if you're like close to my generation, when you're about to retire, you take advantage of your healthcare plan at work and you do some procedures or whatever. And so it isn't uncommon for us to see a bump
Right.
in healthcare usage near the end of the year. It's just a question of how we cover it. This seemed like a bigger usage than usual, but who knows why? But it sounds like we have the strategies to cover it.
All right, so we have a motion to approve the financial report and a second. It was Director Case, I think, who made the motion. I don't remember who seconded it. Was it Director Baker?
Well, one way or the other.
Oh, or Director Burris?
No, it wasn't me.
I think I moved and she seconded.
Yeah.
I think it's
Okay.
the other way around.
Or you moved and I seconded.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for that reminder.
I'm sorry, I don't know what we're approving though. Could you explain to me? Because we don't have a balanced budget yet.
We are not approving a balanced budget. We are approving a report on where we stand in the 11th month of this fiscal year. And we have an explanation as to how we're going to get from what this shows to a balance for the year, which is what Mr. Hollow has been explaining to us. So all we're approving right now is the report. There won't be something to approve next month because it will be balanced, has to be, and it will be. And so we will later tonight be asked to approve the budget for next year. That's a couple of agenda items away, 3 agenda items away, actually 5 agenda items away. Is that clear enough? So this was originally in the consent agenda items. We have a report on where we stand now, and all we are doing is accepting the report or not. And not approving a budget.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
can you give us the number again, on the amount of the check that we're waiting on from the state? Because you clarified for Director Mendia Ramos, and I was mouthing 9 million at the time, and then you told her it was 3, and so am I wrong? Can you?
I believe it's 3 million.
It's 3,
Yes.
okay.
Thank you. Okay. We have a
And that's gonna
motion.
make us whole-ish.
That's our final payment for state aid.
Okay, great, thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Would all those in favor of the motion to accept the report indicate that by saying aye?
I
Any opposed? None, any abstentions? All right, the report is approved. Thank you. Next is board action items. May I have a motion for approval of resolution F0315-06-24, authorizing the sale of $1.5 million of general obligation promissory notes, series 2024-2025A of Milwaukee Area Technical College District, Wisconsin. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Director Case, and I'm going to flip a coin here, and a second by Director Owen Moore. Mr. Fisher, would you please tell us about the sale today?
Yes, absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see you. So good news to share tonight with everyone. We went out for bids this morning and received 4 bids. So in your presentation packet, if you look at page 2 there, you can see the different results that came in with the low bid by Fidelity Capital Markets at the 3.3263%. So last month when I was here, we were closer to about 3.76%. So pretty big dramatic change with the lower interest rate this month. You know, there has been some softer economic data that's been released over the last month. Again, the expectation is potentially 1 cut. For a while there was potential for no cuts by the end of the year by the Fed. That constantly changes as economic data continues to be released. But with the softer data that came out recently, that's really kind of pushed these interest rates down to the level that you're seeing today. So going to page 3, I'll give a quick summary. General obligation promissory notes. This is the first issue of the 24-25 fiscal year. The amount $1,500,000. This issuance will close on July 11th of 2024 and maturity is June 1, 2026 to 29. Non-callable, meaning no refinancing option available because again, it's so short. And then the Moody's rating, AA1. So one of the best bond credit ratings, that's what you've had, it was affirmed. Again, interest rate 3.32 and then by Fidelity Capital Markets. Going to page 4, what we did here on the financing illustration is working with Eva and Jeff and their team. Looking at the existing debt payments on the left side of the page, modeling in the full fiscal year of financings that, you know, we're going to be going throughout the fiscal year. And then on the far right side of the page, ultimately what everything adds up to on an annual basis. So everything continues to be on track with what we've been projecting year over year. So that's all in good shape. The last several pages, that's the rating report. Not barely anything has changed from last month. Continues to say that the district is in good financial shape.
Any questions regarding the results of the sale? All right, we have a motion for approval by Director Case. We have a second by Director Owen Moore. Would you please call the roll?
Director Burris.
Aye.
Director Case.
Aye.
Director Lilia Ramos.
Aye.
Director Moore and Monday.
Aye.
Director Najib.
Aye.
Director Owen Moore.
Aye.
Director Prince.
Aye.
Director Baker.
Aye.
Director Fuller.
Aye. Resolution passes. Next is, may I have a motion to approve resolution F0316-06-24, authorizing the issuance and establishing the parameters for the sale of not to exceed $1.5 million general obligation promissory notes, series 2024-2025B of Milwaukee Area Technical College District, Wisconsin. Is that Director Burris? I'm sorry, I wasn't looking up. Is there a second?
Second.
Director Owen Moore, thank you. All right, this is for the next, authorizing the next sale. Are there any comments or questions? All right, we have a motion by Director Burris, a second by Director Owen Moore. Would you please call the roll?
Director Case.
Aye.
Director Mendieta Ramos.
Aye.
Director Moore Monday.
Aye.
Director Najib.
Aye.
Director Owen Moore.
Aye.
Director Prince.
Aye.
Director Baker.
Aye.
Director Burris.
Aye.
Director Fuller.
Aye, the resolution passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice one.
Thank you. Good thing.
I was just say, do we have one more of them?
Yeah, all right. Got one more.
Next agenda item, may I have a motion to approve resolution F0317-06-24, authorizing the issuance of $27.5 million of general obligation promissory notes, series 2024-2025C of Milwaukee Area Technical College District, Wisconsin.
So moved. I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Director Case, second by Director Baker. Mr. Hollow, will you explain for us briefly what this is for?
Yes, we do not have a board meeting in July, so we cannot authorize this issuance in August. And the $27.5 million is 26 million of capital equipment, which we do every year. And then the 1.5 million that's done, that's issued every month. So 26 plus 1.5 is 27.5 million. And this is same as what we issued last year as well.
Any questions or comments about this resolution? Any questions or comments about this resolution? All right, we have a motion for approval by Director Case, a second by Director Baker. Would you please call the roll?
Director Mendieta Ramos.
Aye.
Director Moore Monday.
Aye.
Director Najib.
Aye.
Director Owen Moore.
Aye.
Director Prince.
Aye.
Director Baker.
Aye.
Director Burris.
Aye.
Director Case.
Aye.
Director Fuller.
Aye, resolution passes. Next, may I have a motion to approve resolution F0318-06-24 to approve fiscal year 2024-2025 renovation and remodeling capital projects.
I'll move approval, Mr. Chair.
There is a motion by Director Baker. Is there a second?
Second.
second by Director Mendieta Ramos. And here she is. Any questions about this resolution?
Yeah, do we know how much assigned for it?
The amount is 18 million.
18 million, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, we have a motion by Director Baker and second by Director Mendieta Ramos. Would all those in favor indicate that by saying aye?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? Resolution passes. Next, may I have a motion to approve resolution F0319-06-24 to approve the 3-year facilities plan? Is there a motion? Director Owen Moore, thank you.
Okay.
And Director Burris on the second, thank you. Are there any questions? Is Chris Johnson here? Oh, I apologize. Are there any questions for Mr. Johnson? Director Penn.
Is this different? I'm trying to get a grip on, is this different than the renovation remodeling project? So is this just a plan that is submitted? You keep shaking your head. This is a plan that's submitted to the state, correct, for them to plan? Or I'm kind of not really getting how this part of it works.
Mr. Johnson, why don't you explain it to us?
So what you just approved was this coming fiscal year, so that's 18 million. This is a 3-year forecast of what we think the subsequent 2 years will entail also. So this is a requirement through the WTC for us to submit this every year. It doesn't mean next year we won't come back, and year 2 won't be exactly what gets submitted this year, but it's just a 3-year forecast.
So at the end of each year, we add a year to the forecast. But we're not committed to this. It's planning, and it's a way of authorizing us, as we often do. We don't spend money in a particular fiscal year on a project that was on the A list, if you will. For whatever reason, we can shift it to something else and stay within the budget, stay within the forecast. So it's a planning tool that sets parameters. But we aren't committing to spending that money yet.
Who reviews this?
I believe
we
it's
do.
a state agency, though. Am I incorrect about the Director Baker? Do you know?
Well, we review
We
it.
review it, but
We saw it previously in presentations here, but WTCS looks at it.
Yes.
Thanks.
all right. Any other questions? Okay, we have a motion by Director Owen Moore, and a second by Director Burris. Would all those in favor of the resolution please indicate that by saying aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Resolution passes. Thank you. Next, is there a motion to approve resolution F0320-06-24 to adopt the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget?
I so move.
Director
Second.
Najib, and who is the second? Director Case. Thank you. Are there any questions?
This is where we wanted to look and see if the
Yes.
Yes.
43 million was budgeted in for 24-25.
Which is higher than
Yep.
the 37.
So what does the budget include, Mr. Hollow?
The budget book requires us to budget by fund and by function. So the fund is Fund 1. The function, typically what it is it shows expenditures. It doesn't itemize benefits, but there's a comment in here in the budget book that reflects how they went about putting the benefits together. They,
Could you tell us where you are in the budget?
yes, I'm on page 46
Thank
of the budget book. Overall fringe benefits are budgeted at approximately 42 million in fiscal year 24-25. For the 24-25, the current estimate increase for the district's total calendar year health plan is 11.9%. This calculation both includes medical trend and of 7.1 and a pharmacy trend of 10.9. I mean, you can go, I could read through this.
Nope.
Or you're good.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Any other questions related to this resolution for approval of the budget? There being none, we have a motion by Director Najib. We have a second by Director Case. Would you please call the roll?
Director Owen Moore,
Aye.
Director Pence,
Aye.
Director Baker,
Aye.
Director Burris,
Aye.
Director Case,
Aye.
Director Mendieta Ramos,
Aye.
Director Moore Mukunde,
Aye.
Director Najib,
Aye.
Director Fong.
Aye, the resolution passes.
That was. We're on G.
Next, we are on item G.
We agree with you.
Is there a motion to approve resolution F0321-06-24 to establish reserves for fiscal year 2024-2025 budget?
I'll move approval.
Director Baker, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Director Owen Moore. Are there any questions about the establishment of the reserves?
Are you able to just summarize what we're doing here?
Okay, so let's see here if I can bring it up. The attachment 5G, this is something which the state requires us to provide. And it is an estimate of our reserves. I was going to say general fund reserves. I'm not sure that's technically correct, but of our reserves that we anticipate maintaining through the next fiscal year. And at the end here, it says the second last paragraph in 5G. It says that at June 30, 2024, the general fund reserve is estimated to be, I'm going to abbreviate this, 43.744% of operating revenue. The special revenue fund reserve is estimated to be $709,000. In fiscal year 24-25, the balance in the general fund reserve is planned to remain at $42,244,042, which is its current balance. Okay. Any other questions about the reserve fund?
Just to be
Director
clear,
Baker?
it's reserve funds, so
Funds.
as we.
Multiple.
Right, so we have a reserve for student financial assistance and we have a reserve for debt service, capital projects. So my apologies, that was me buzzing.
Oh. Sure, but thank you.
Any other questions? All right, we have a motion by Director Baker to approve the resolution, a second by Director Owen Moore. Would all those in favor indicate that by saying aye?
Aye.
Right.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Resolution passes. Next is agenda item H. Is there a motion to approve resolution F0322-06-24 to authorize contingency payment of bills and awards of contracts?
So moved.
Director Mendieta Ramos. Is there a second? I'm sorry.
Second. I'll second it. Since you already wrote it down, I'll second it. I was like, what? She
I
was
can't
quiet.
ever look down, it's like, okay. All right, so we have a motion by Director Mendieta Ramos now and a second by Director Owen Moore. Are there any questions about this resolution? Okay, this basically authorizes the payment of bills while we do not have a meeting next month. All right, we have a motion by Director Mendieta Ramos and a second by Director Owen Moore. Would all those in favor of the resolution indicate that by saying aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Resolution passes. Next agenda item I, is there a motion to approve resolution F0323-06-24 to approve insurance coverages through District's Mutual Insurance and the Wisconsin Technical College Insurance Trust?
So moved.
Thank you. Motion by Director Case. Is there a second?
Second.
Director Burris. Any questions about this resolution?
Yes. What kind of insurance is this?
It's all of our insurances except for healthcare benefits.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Okay, any other questions about this resolution? All right, we have a motion by Director Case, a second by Director Burris to approve the resolution. Would all those in favor indicate that by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Resolution passes. Next is agenda item J. Is there a motion for approval of resolution FO324-06-24 to approve compensation recommendations for employees covered by collective bargaining agreements?
I move approval, Mr. Chair.
Thank you from Director Baker. Is there a second?
Second.
Director Burris. Any questions about this resolution? Director
I need
Baker? I'm sorry, Director Najib, go ahead.
I need explanation on it. I didn't understand that one.
Okay, Mr. McColgan, are you here? There you go. Come on, please.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I can give you a brief overview. The college engaged in collective bargaining negotiations on base wages with the 4 bargaining units for Local 212. And we did that. We had approximately 7 sessions between mid-May and mid-June and arrived on a tentative agreement on June 18th of 2024. And under Act 10, we're obligated to bargain over base wages. We are limited by the cost of living index. They do like a 6-month look back prior to the date of the expiration of your collective bargaining agreement. So the maximum we could have bargained was 4.12% increase for 1 year for fiscal year 24-25. And the tentative agreement we reached on June the 18th was for a 2% increase on July 7th for non-faculty. And for faculty, it would start with the start of the fall semester in mid-August. And then another 2% on January 5th for non-faculty. And then another 2% for faculty starting January 17th or the start of the spring semester. And so that would cover the 4 bargaining units for Local 212. And then the compensation increase for the non-represented employees, which is the second resolution. That is a 2% increase on July 7th and another 2% increase on January the 17th of 2025. So when you do the math, each 1% is worth approximately $1.4 million in cost to the college for all employee groups. And when you do the 2 + 2, it equates to approximately a 3% increase over the course of a whole year for an approximate cost of $4.2 million.
Mr. McColgan, when you said, and there's a second resolution, you're referring to item K, the next item on the agenda.
Correct.
Okay. All right, any further questions about item J, Director Baker?
I just want to thank the administration for reaching a negotiated settlement.
We were happy to arrive at a so.
Any other questions or comments about item J? All right, we have a motion to approve by Director Baker and a second by Director Burris. Would all those in favor of approving resolution F0324-06-24 indicate that by saying aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The resolution passes.
Thank you.
Why don't you stay just a moment? Next is item K, But I have a motion to approve resolution FO 325-06-24 to approve compensation recommendations for administrators and staff.
So moved.
Director Case and a second by Director Baker. We've already heard an explanation of this. Are there any other comments or questions? All right, would all those in favor indicate that by saying aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Resolution passes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve resolution FO 326-06-24 to approve the criminal justice program implementation for program titled Criminal Justice Law Enforcement 720 Academy, parens 30-502-2? Is there a motion to approve? Director Owen Moore, is there a second?
So moved.
Director Burris, thank you. Dr. Dakwar.
Good evening. So as stated, we are seeking your approval for this technical diploma. Document was attached to the agenda, and I have a team with me, Ms. Janelle Jones and Mr. Tony Riley. Also virtually, we have Ian Makula from curriculum management to address any process questions. We'll be glad to address any questions that you may have. If you'd like for us to give you a brief overview of it, we can do as well, any way you'd like to go.
Would you please give us a brief overview and please incorporate in that an answer to the question, is this new or is this
Thank you.
just a renewal of something we've been
This is
doing?
brand new.
Okay,
Yes,
all right, so please give us an overview.
sure.
So I want to let Tony talk because he did most of the work. So go ahead. I'll give you the floor. If you don't want to, I'll talk. But I just want to give you the floor because you did most of the work.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. The 720 Police Academy program is through Department of Justice, Wisconsin Law Enforcement Standards Board. It is applicable to all the technical colleges that provide that particular training program. Unusually, MATC was one of the first academies that was established in the state of Wisconsin back in the 60s. Formerly doing an academy program in the early 70s when it was still here at downtown, and then it moved to Oak Creek. Through all of that, though, the Wisconsin Technical College system worked with the other technical colleges and made the 720 programs recognized in each of the technical colleges, except MATC.
Oh.
So for decades, we have not had a program as other technical colleges do have. And there are benefits to having a program established. And
You want me to talk about benefits?
would you mind talking about that?
I do not mind. So, first of all, I just want to say the MATC right now is one of only about 4 or 5 of the technical colleges in the Wisconsin Technical College system that does not have a technical diploma for our police academy, even though our academy is amazing and we do great work. I think one of the benefits, I have to say that I'm not shy. I think one of the benefits though, of us having a technical diploma is that this program then becomes financial aidable, right? So the cost of the program is about $5,000. For students that don't have $5,000 to pay for the program or don't have an affiliation with the suburban police department, they have to come up with the money to pay for the academy unless they go through Milwaukee's academy. Making this program financial aidable, it opens up a wide range of students that were not eligible to come through the program before to be able to come through the program now. Many of them are minorities, people of lower socioeconomic backgrounds. Now they'll have the opportunity to come in, go through the academy, get certified. And even if they come in as a pre-service, meaning they're not attached to any police department, what we've seen in our past academies is that our pre-service students are actually hired by the time we finish graduation. So everybody's leaving out of here with a job.
And one more thing to add, we've been offering the courses with a level of success. Now we're formalizing the process.
Correct.
Great work.
Yes.
Director Morrow McCundy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, students that go through this police academy don't have to go through an additional academy if they serve with a law enforcement agency?
It depends on the agency that they serve for. Right now, the majority of our students in the academy come from the suburban districts because they don't have police academies. Milwaukee, of course, has their own police academy, so their students go through their academy. If someone went through our academy and they wanted to work for Milwaukee, they have to go through the academy again. So that we can't do anything.
So we are not subsidizing Milwaukee's police academy?
No, absolutely not.
Okay,
No.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Did Director Pence have a question?
More on process than anything.
Okay.
I noticed that it seemed that we're now applying to the state to implement this program. Can you explain that process a little bit?
Absolutely. So it's a two-phased approach. The first part is a concept review. That's what you have. And then it goes to the WTCS board. I think they approve it in September. And then in November, they would do the actual program itself. It doesn't come back here. The minute you approve that concept review, it just moves on and forward.
Okay, so how long would it, if this is approved, can we start in fall?
No, actually, we continue to offer the courses. Am I correct?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure.
Right. we have-
But formally, I think, and Leanne is here, I would say spring. Is that, accurate? Leanne, can you hear us?
I believe the intention to offer this program is going to be formally in the 25-26 academic year. We theoretically could offer it as early as spring, assuming that WTCS approves, and I've never seen them disapprove.
Commissioner Baker.
So I'm excited we're doing this.
Yeah, because I think we're excited.
We wait.
I know, we've had the program for
Yep.
years, we've been doing the program, it's just, we haven't had it as a formal diploma program through the state so that it could be aidable.
Correct.
Yes.
Great, so
Yeah.
brilliant, I'm glad we did this. But there's one comment that was made, and I just want to kind of put this ball back in the air, and that's about the Milwaukee Police Academy. Because I think in the past, we have had some conversations with the city about a duplication of services, really, and how that there could be taxpayer savings in, we're doing the training for all the suburban, I think all the other suburban municipalities, and Milwaukee runs that their own, and I think it's worth having that conversation again with Milwaukee.
Yep.
We have a new mayor. I don't think we've ever had that conversation with this mayor, have we?
Well, it's been brought up for something to consider because we talked about cost savings.
Right?
And we thought this would be a great cost saving
Yeah.
plan for them. And so I'm sure it's more difficult than that. And so have not heard back, but I've had the conversation
Okay.
for sure.
Okay, yeah, so I think that would be worth us reaching out in some way
Uh-huh.
as we move into the future, and it could mean a bump of students for us too.
One more question, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Director Morrow McCundy.
So, let's say somebody's from Wauwatosa and they don't have a training academy here. Are they coming here to get that training and then going to work for Wauwatosa's PD?
That's correct.
That's how it would work. And so, if someone got it done here and then wanted to go work for MPD, they would still have to get that additional training.
They would have to do the academy all over again,
Okay,
but under the municipal, city of Milwaukee, not through the technical college.
okay. So we are technically subsidizing other police departments, just not Milwaukee.
Just not Milwaukee.
Okay.
But are we subsidizing?
We,
No,
no.
I think
they
subsidizing
pay.
might be the wrong word.
Yeah, right.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
His wheels are turning.
Yeah,
He's
just
trying to
so-
figure out how to
But
do
I
it.
mean, other municipalities, we either have an intergovernmental agreement or something, they pay for the training. We're not subsidizing,
Right. we're
No,
not
we
doing
don't.
right?
Any other questions?
Well, again, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great work.
All right, so this is resolution, this is agenda item L. We have a motion from Director Owen Moore to approve resolution 326-06-24 and a second by Director Burris. Would all those in favor of approving the resolution indicate that by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Resolution passes. Thank you. Next agenda item M is approval of the president's annual goals. At your seats should be document, senior presidential goals, which was available online, but here it is in front of you. Dr. Martin, would you introduce these for us, please?
Sure, absolutely. For those of you who are new, in the past, we used to get.
I'm sorry, I should ask for a motion.
Okay,
My apologies.
no problem.
Is there a motion to approve the president's annual goals?
So moved.
And second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, Director. I'm sorry, Dr. Martin.
No problem, no problem.
Everybody's a director today.
I know, no problem. A few years ago, we used to approve these goals, if you recall, in the summer, like in August. And by the time we got them out to everybody, to cascade through the organization, it was a little bit, we were already a semester behind. So last year, we decided to approve them early as part of the budget process because, of course, the goals drive the budget, right? So we want to make sure that we have enough budget dollars to actually be able to accomplish these goals. So that's what we did last year. Well, because obviously I will not be here and Dr. Cruz will be here, I did have a conversation with him about continuing this process so that the college could keep moving forward. While he comes here and he's going to have many folks who want to see him, he wants to understand the institution, and give him some time to really understand more about the organization so that he'll have time as everyone's working on these to then reflect on them. And he can always then come bring back and change them. Thought I'd talk a little bit about the process. We did a little bit different process this year to get to these goals. We started last July by having a book that we all read together as my cabinet called The Great Upheaval by Arthur Levine and Scott Van Pelt. And it really is a book that's been used across the education industry to look at what's happened to other industries and what is happening to the education industry, and then what should we look for in terms of moving forward. So we thought this would be a great way to kickstart the new year, to look at all the changes that have happened post-pandemic to all educational institutions and other industries as well. So after we did that, then in December, we had a retreat and we had Dr. Mannion lead us on scenario planning. And we were able to come up based on the book and other readings and sources that we used in education to come up with 4 possible outcomes. And that's what scenario planning is, if you're not familiar with it. So we did come up with different outcomes that we thought were possible for our college. And based on those outcomes, then we actually named them. One was Blockbuster. We didn't want to be a Blockbuster in the future. So we picked one called In the Zone. And what we did is we looked at each of those possible outcomes against the In the Zone. And here's the question we used. In order to achieve the In the Zone scenario and avoid the Blockbuster scenario, for example, what must we stop, start, or continue? And we actually listed all of those for each one of those on each quadrant. And then at the end of those, we really prioritized them and said, now, how do they relate to the goals that we have currently? We want to make sure that that's in there. Some of the things that we really decided to focus in on was about enrollment. We thought enrollment obviously is a measure of our health of our organization, and we know how important it is to our budget. We base so much of our budget on our enrollments. And then looking at how we really look at partnerships and transformational relationships and make sure that we continue to remain relevant. AI, we knew is going to be, and we do know it's going to be the biggest disruptor that this college and the world will probably see in the next few years. And we wanted to talk about how that was one of the forces for change for this college for the future. At the same time, we know that this next year we're starting our new strategic planning process. We're ending our final year of our strategic plan. So we wanted to stay with the same goals that we are, the same strategic priorities that we had, and then just embed them. You'll see that some of them remain the same because, of course, they are part of the health of our organization. So you see under each strategic priority, we pulled out 9 that we felt were the most important. If you'll recall, these are the 9 that typically I was reviewed in January by the board on did I meet these goals or not. Now, the strategic plan itself has many more objectives to them. under each of these 4 strategic priorities, but we didn't include those for review. We will continue to work on those. Dr. Cruz will be, of course, apprised of those particular ones. We're almost finished with the other ones. We wanted to make sure we got these done so that he had a chance to look at them. We did send it to him. So he does have this in front of him. I explained this whole process. He was okay with it. He understood it and he was actually appreciative of it. So I'd share that and then just see if you have any specific questions.
Those were my biggest questions as I read this. I was like, oh, we have a new president coming in. How can we give him goals without him having that opportunity to? So hearing more about that process and the fact that he could bring these back and adapt these as he starts to learn more, I think is really key because they are tied to his evaluation. Right. And they should be like, these are the living goals that he feels like he can achieve and will get us to that strategic piece. So just my first thought was, wait, we should just wait and let him set these in August. But knowing more about the process with the whole team, I can see going ahead forward with them and giving that opportunity to adapt if need be. And I appreciate you doing the work ahead of time too. I wanted to make sure I said that too. It's like, oh, I don't know about this right now, but
Yeah, this is probably, except for maybe the first year of the strategic plan, the most time we've really spent really going through and really deciding, because things have changed so dramatically
yeah.
in education, about what we really wanted to do this last year before we go into the new process.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Dr. Pence?
So he had access to these goals and he will be picking stuff off the menu to put on the
Well,
air.
this is his, yeah, I mean,
Okay.
there'll be more that is there, so he may see something else that's there and say, hey, I really want that instead of this to be evaluated. I'm not sure, or I don't want this, I want this instead. But I think that's the good discussion. I mean, if he's here 6 months, I'm thinking that would be a good time when he's evaluated for you to all have the discussion together about the goals and what the future looks like and what he has seen and what he thinks should be the priorities.
And I think that tails directly into the strategic planning process too. What are we gonna measure? What are we gonna aim for? How does that fit into our institutional strategic plan? It's all part of the same process, I think, but one of the things that this does is it gives people who are working day in and day out on these things some instruction, some direction about what they should be doing until we come along and tell them to do something different. And I don't think there's anything on this list that we would regret accomplishing in the short term. I'm sorry, Director Mendieta Ramos.
I was just gonna say that this is like a roadmap for him and the rest of the team while he adapts and learns.
Any other questions or comments about the presidential goals? All right. Do we not need a motion to approve things?
We have a motion.
We have a motion.
We have a motion.
Okay, it's set up oddly on here. All right, so we have a motion from Director Moore Omokundi, a second by Director Case. Would all those in favor of approving the goals indicate that by saying aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? They are approved. Thank you. Next is a policy review. That means this is the first time we're looking at it. We are not being asked to approve it at this point. We will be asked to approve it or some version of it later. And would General Counsel Sherry Terrell-Webb tell us about it, please?
So this policy is coming out of the President's AI task force. That task force was comprised of a number of different individuals in the college giving input on how the college should move forward with using AI within the college. Particularly with this policy, we wanted to set a baseline for how AI could responsibly and ethically be used in the college. Some of the areas that are being worked on within the task force include AI in the classroom, integrating AI into work principles, community outreach and inclusivity. And so this policy was to lay the guiding principles for the entire college on how we could move forward and be responsible in using AI every day in our practices.
Yes.
Is this consistent with the other technical colleges in the state, or are we ahead of the game, or how does that compare?
Some have done it, some haven't. We actually took a survey nationwide and looked at a number of different policies by colleges, universities, to see kind of what was on the landscape and what seemed to be doable for us. So this is a combination of a lot of different resources.
Perfect, thank you.
Director Moore-McCundy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are there any working relationships or kind of overlapping with AI task forces at the state level from the governor or the legislature?
Yes, we do have a number of members of our team who actually are members of the governor's AI task force.
Okay, and are we making any distinction as far as, was there any conversation about being able to distinguish fantasy from reality, if you will, and letting people know, okay, there's some AI has been used in X, Y, and Z?
Yes, and we're building out a resource manual, for lack of a better word, where people can get examples of what we mean when we talk about AI. What type of AI is available to you to use within the college infrastructure, and those kind of things to cover just what you're talking about, hallucinations and all of that within AI. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions? Director Mendieta Ramos, I'm sorry, I'll come back to you, Director.
Thank you. It's a little bit related but unrelated. I assume that the faculty has a policy for students, right?
This is our first policy with regard to AI. Now, they do have principles that they are using with respect to syllabi in the classroom that do lay out principles for students. We also, on this task force, as I said, it was cross-functional. And so on the team in particular that wrote this, we did have faculty member present to talk through what they're seeing and how they're disseminating information for now until we could get this policy done.
Thank you.
Director.
My thought in looking at it as we talk about AI and how it's growing and it's so important that we stay on the edge of it, is right now it's the what not to do with so it's the protective policy. But I would love to somehow see some, like, the university's statement on who we are with regards to AI and like the positive encouragement of the use and development around that. And I know that some people have done policies that kind of capture that in, like, this is where we stand on it. I hear your excitement when you talk about it. So I would love to see that somehow included. And if we're not there yet, I'm grateful for the protective policy as it is. I just hope that we can get it to that point where we have some, like, this is where we're going.
And we as a team do recognize that while other teams may eventually not be needed, we will continue to review. Actually, the IT person who was on this is on the governor's task force, so he'll be constantly reviewing this. And as you said, we did think about how to phrase it, but because we have nothing at this point, we thought it's better to start here and then we can rework it at a later date.
Director Moore-McCundy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are we open to any recommendations from those who are experts in the field?
Yes, and
outside of the task force.
yes, and we do have outside experts who were advising on the policy.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? Well, I have this question. Are we developing a curriculum around the appropriate use of artificial intelligence?
We are creating a whole training suite. And actually the person who does a lot of the training for the college is going to start developing, if she hasn't already started developing, some of the curriculum, and then looking at resources that we've already paid for that have trainings. And we're just using this, our next step within our group is to go forward and put forward trainings for the college-wide. And then another conversation was also with regard to students deciding when we would have orientation towards using AI every day in the classroom and what that could look like.
Dr. Baker.
So I'm not sure, I might have taken something else from your comment, but I appreciate that. So this again is the protective of training our staff in offering that sort of training to students.
Yes.
There is also the question of within our technical programs, will we be teaching?
I'm assuming so, but I'm not
That's
connected
not
to
your
that.
role, right?
I think we have courses already within programs.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. So yes, we are actually in the process of creating an AI badge. This is a micro credential.
Sure.
And then it will compress a number of courses within that. I wanted to mention within our courses, though, we always leave room for evolving technology and software and so on. So we've been kind of touching up on it within our courses, certain units within it. But this time we're looking into a micro credential, a badge.
Good.
Sure.
Thank you. Sure. Any other questions or comments? All right, when will we see this again? It'll be in
August.
August. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is item 7A, approval of emeritus status policy. This is the policy that was circulated for review at our last meeting. I think it was our special meeting. Is there a motion to approve the emeritus policy?
All right.
Director Pence, is there a second?
Second.
Director Mukundi. Any questions or discussion about this policy? Director Baker.
Well, and just to be clear, that this is a policy for us to have as a board moving forward. It is not specific at this point. It's just to say that we could do this.
Right.
That's the nature of having the policy.
And who would be eligible for it.
Right. Correct.
Director Burks.
I was not at that meeting, so is it appropriate for me to say this well? Okay.
No, that's not a reason to abstain. Because all it was last time was a review, so this is the first time anyone's voting on it.
Okay.
You can just read it. It's in
Yeah,
the,
there's a little-
or can people answer any questions for you?
Yeah,
I didn't read it, so.
well, why don't you take a minute and then we'll have a voice vote.
Okay, so I've read it, but I still don't really understand the purpose. It's just a title.
It is the title.
Mr. Chairman.
Director. Go ahead.
I think what it is that someone in their service here at the college, we'll use Dr. Martin, if you will, since she's the one that's here now.
Just as an example.
As an example, just as an example that folks are familiar with. When she goes on to do other work, there may be people who only know her for her time as president here at the college. And so they'll say, oh, Dr. Vicky Martin, president. Are you still president at the college? Well, no. Well, she used to be, so, but it gives her an opportunity to use this title, if you will, if we were to bestow it upon her, as a body, for her to have those same relationships with people who have only known her as that for that period of time. But my favorite line is the bottom one. The board of directors retains the authority to withdraw a president emeritus title at any time at its discretion as it deems necessary and appropriate. That's my favorite line of the whole thing, because we can just say, you know what? We take it, we give it, and we take it away. And we do that, and we don't even have to have an explanation. And so we can allow these relationships to continue. However, at any time, we can say, nope, can't do it anymore. So.
I love your explanation.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I mean, Mr. Chair.
Switching title. Yeah. You got elevated. You got a paycheck with that one.
Yes.
I think there is no body of which I would like to be speaker at the moment.
Me either. Thank you.
Thank you for your explanation. Are there any other questions or comments? All right, we have a motion by Director Pence and a second by Director Morton Mukundi. Would all those in favor of approving the emeritus policy indicate that by saying aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The policy is approved. Thank you. Next is policy approval, item 7B, as in boy, which includes 3 sets of changes for handbook policies. Is there a motion to approve? I'll ask for a motion to approve them all, and then we'll see if anything needs to be pulled out. Is there a motion for approval of the handbook policies?
So moved.
Director Case, is there a second?
Second.
Director Mediator Rand. All right. So Dan, would you come back up, please? This was presented to us in some form at I can't remember if it was the last board meeting or the
May.
special meeting. Okay. And some changes were requested. Could you show us where or how those changes have been made?
Sure. The first policy is the activity facilitator policy. And there was some discussion in the May board meeting, in terms of the frequency of the use and is there potential for abuse where the college could use this and work somebody at the full part-time status and deprive them of the opportunity to have benefits and such. So we did a couple things. One is we looked at the data and we looked at, I think, calendar year 2023. And I think in most of the cases, it was under 100 hours. There were, I think, 7 Milwaukee PBS, and those are pretty much on a per diem basis. They're not necessarily hour for hour. And I believe Director Baker and Director Owen Moore had mentioned, can you put something in there to discourage any type of potential abuse? So we did add some language that said, the activity facilitator position wouldn't be used to circumvent the hiring of an employee as a regular part-time employee where deemed operationally necessary by the college. So that
where is that language? Can you direct this to?
In red. It's in red.
Okay. Director Baker.
So I was one of the people who raised concerns about this, and actually when I first saw this over the weekend, it looked exactly like it did last month. Now, I appreciate the addition of that language, but I am very uncomfortable with this still. I really am. So 15 hours per week for 780 hours, just to be clear, that's 52 weeks.
Correct.
Okay. To me, if it walks like a part-time employee and it talks like a part-time employee, it's a part-time employee. If somebody works for us 15 hours a week for an entire year, as we are the employer, I really feel that's a part-time employee. when we heard from you guys telling us, just in your quick look when we were at the meeting last month, you said what you just told us right now. Most people, it doesn't go over 100 hours. Then I would be much more comfortable if this said 15 hours per week for no more than 100 hours. Then I'm actually not talking about someone who, in my mind, really is a part-time employee. I understand the concept of particularly at public television. I know a little bit about that world. I understand how people come in as contractors, or not contractors, but as like do a gig and whatever. There's just, this is in writing as we say 15 hours per week for 780 hours, and you're still a casual worker. I'm very uncomfortable with it.
Can I ask a clarifying question based on your comments? Because I wasn't here for the original
Sure, go ahead.
discussion. So from an HR perspective, are we actually payrolling these employees, or are they paid as an independent contractor or a consultant? Because to me, that would make the difference. If I am not on payroll and I am just come in as a 1099 or as I work for another company that's coming in to present something, to me, that's very clearly
we were told no.
Okay, is that?
I don't know for certain. I think
I
in most,
can answer that, Dan. I'm sorry, I'm Angela Nixon. I'm talent acquisition manager. If you were brought in as an activity facilitator, you're performing work that is not, it doesn't align with the specifications of that of an independent contractor. You don't have sole control over the responsibilities that you're performing. As such, you are paid by the college. So you are not, you are not paid as an independent contractor. I would ask, I understand the concern, what you're saying about, the longevity. 100 hours is really only 2 weeks or 3 weeks worth of work, and that's just not sufficient. Would there be another number? Maybe if we dropped it down to maybe like 500 or something like that, where it's not as close to something that would be equivalent to a part-time position, but still gives us a little more flexibility to bring someone in for a project. But we really don't need them on a long-term basis. Is there any room there?
So can you put them on a term then and say that they're limited to a certain term?
We could absolutely do that. Yes, we could absolutely do that.
I'm sorry.
All right, let's stop. Now we're sort of negotiating where the line should be drawn, and that's not what we should be doing at this level at this time. So I think we're going to send this one back and to have that issue addressed. It wasn't really addressed to our satisfaction, at least since the last review.
And to be clear, if you want an and or in there, put an and or, but right now it says 15 hours per week and no more than 780. So you can't do 100 hours in 2 or 3 weeks if you're only doing 15 hours a week. So if you want an and or, if you want to cap it at something by looking at the data, but let's just have one set of language and be clear on it.
Yeah, I would be more comfortable if there was a term limit or something designating them and clearly separating them from the same rights as a part-time or full-time employee. So I think in the corporate world, we do contract employees or professional services where it is clearly designated, because there's multiple lawsuits that Microsoft has a huge one, right? Where that line becomes very blurry and all of a sudden we owe them a lot of benefits. So for that purpose, companies typically have a designator to say maximum of 2 years or whatever it is, so that they cannot be confused or claim that they were unclear. So I'd be much more comfortable if that language was in there in some context.
My understanding is that your comments relate to item 7B Romanet 1, not
Correct.
2 and 3.
Correct.
Okay. Is there any discussion about items 2 and 3? Director Baker?
This was the stuff I talked about a lot last month. And so one of my big objections is still in here. At the very top of this item, it says, in order to ensure compliance with the with the Family Medical Leave Act, we are drafting the following changes, okay? To be clear, the FMLA is a floor and not a ceiling. Okay, FMLA in the state of Wisconsin kicks in after 1,000 hours of work. Okay, in some states it's 1,250, but in Wisconsin it's 1,000. Any employer can have a leave before that. FMLA does not demand that you wait until FMLA is taken. Okay, right? This language made it sound like we had to make these changes because FMLA, in order to be in compliance. So I'm going to say we misunderstood that, but that's a bad concept then to take into what is a shared governance committee where we have a conversation about should we do this or not? Because if we tell the people in that committee, well, we have to do this to be in compliance with legislation, you get a different result. I raised that last time. My understanding was then that we would go back to the shared governance committee, have this discussion, and then bring something back. Since that language was still in there, I actually called somebody and said, was there a meeting? And I was told there has not been. So I would like to table this until we take it back and run it through our process. I'm fine with this if the committee understands that this wasn't about FMLA compliance, it's just something we're trying to do. And, you know, the committee likes that, that's cool, you bring it back to us, I'm good with that. But right now, the premise for it, I don't think would have painted a fair picture for the people on that committee. And the other piece that I had asked for last time was also for us, if we are going to do this, to investigate a short-term disability. And so that gives you a little more time to come back to us because we don't have one currently. And again, 1,000 hours means pretty much somebody would be working here. You know, if someone was 35 hours a week, they could work for us almost 2 semesters. And then if something happened and they're not eligible for FMLA, there's nothing for them to fall back on. So the ability for us to offer a short-term disability might be a nice option.
So just clarifying to piggyback on that, there's also in Wisconsin, we have both federal and state FMLA. So if there is a compliance issue, I would prefer that it's called out exactly which law need to comply to. So that was just my clarification, if there truly is a compliance issue.
I'm going to take your comments as a motion to table this.
Mr. Chair, I motion to table this policy.
Is there a
August.
second?
Second. You go ahead.
Is it me?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay,
You got it?
Any discussion about the motion to table this?
No, thank you, guys.
All right, we have a motion by Director Baker, a second by Director Case.
I do have one question. Do we know when this meeting is supposed to take? Has it been scheduled?
Excuse me, this is Elle Bonds. Hi, everyone. That meeting did occur. That conversation did happen. Shortly after the May board meeting, there was an email sent to the entire handbook committee rectifying and clarifying the statement, and then also inviting them for discussion in our handbook committee meeting that took place in the first week of June. And there was no further discussion, there were no concerns raised, and there was nothing added. So that meeting did already take place.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Are there any questions or comments from the board about the motion to table?
Clarifying, are we tabling the first one too?
Yes.
Yeah. So
We're tabling the whole group.
Well, actually, I didn't say anything about 3.
Right, we haven't said anything about 3, but I think we essentially said we want them to come back on 1. So should our motion also have?
All right, I think the motion is, let's rephrase the motion.
Sure, yeah.
Is there a motion to table items B1 and B2?
Yeah, and I would say I would table till the August meeting, and then hopefully we'll be able to move forward.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to table items 7B1 and 2. Would all those in favor indicate that by saying aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We still have a motion to approve and a second with regard to the remaining item, which is 7B3. Is there any discussion of 7B3, Romanet 3? Okay, I think we can proceed with the motion and the second from Directors Case, Mendieta, Ramos. All those in favor of approving 7B Romanet 3, indicate that by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That part of the approval motion is affirmed, is passed. All right, next agenda item 8 is monthly reports. Two things. One is we have not yet looked at the board self-evaluation process. And I will make a couple of observations about it and then make a suggestion rather than having a long discussion tonight. For the most part, the number of people indicating concurrence or strong concurrence with the individual assessments is roughly 6 members, six or seven members on every question. And there are 1 or 2 in most cases which say we need more instruction on this, we need more understanding of this, which is a fair comment, right? We have talked about doing a major dive into our instructional programs. We are scheduling a retreat, trying to schedule a retreat to talk about the HLC this summer. I think that it would be wise to take the comments about everything from not strongly agree down, whatever comments there are, and make sure that those items are addressed in the enhanced training program that we're talking about creating. I think that's the place to do it. Let's just take the comments at face value. If somebody feels we need more of X, we need more of X, obviously, to some extent. Second, related to that, we are, I understand, talking about scheduling the half-day retreat for either a Thursday afternoon or a Friday in August. And how do you want to collect this information? You want to send out a Survey Monkey or something else?
Weeks we should stay away. People have any vacation plan.
The second week of August.
Okay, well, why don't we send a survey out for the other 3 weeks and let's see what we can come up with. I suppose we could also include the last week of July. Is that a problem for anyone? Okay, let's do that and see what we can come up with. Second, in the chair's report, is this. In recognition of Dr. Martin's leadership and vision in creating MATC's Institute for Advanced Leadership, the college's executive leadership team has renamed the institute the Dr. Vicki J. Martin Institute for Advanced Leadership. The honor was announced to Dr. Martin and other leaders gathered for an institute session on June 11th. Since the program's launch in April 2022, over 110 current college leaders have participated in the 10-month development experience, which focuses on individual leadership competencies and culture transformation. So first of all, congratulations on getting all those people to do
Congratulations.
Congratulations. I have one more item that I will deal with at the end of our official agenda tonight, but our next is the president's report.
Right. Good evening, everyone. We had a great celebration on June 5th with M Cubed. We had 90 students from MPS who completed our Connections program, College Connections program. And those are eligible students in high school who will take up to 21 college credits. They attend both MATC and UWM. And MATC, they can take college level courses in English and math, as well as nursing and science courses. And at UWM, they take educational psychology and ethnic studies. They have saved this year about $500,000 in tuition with those 90 students. And since its inception in 2019, 697 students have participated from MPS, saving more than $2.4 million in tuition. It's a great program. And at the beginning, they had to actually convince students to do this because they're like, I don't want to go to college and take college credit. And now there's a wait list. And so they had hundreds of students who actually applied for this. So it's been really great. The next thing is, you know, you passed the flag policy. So in support of MATC's LGBTQ plus community, MATC made history on June 10th when students, staff, and administrators gathered at the Oak Creek campus to watch the pride flag raised in recognition of Pride Month for the first time in the college's history. And then second, Juneteenth flag. History was made again on June 18th at the downtown at this campus. The event included inspiring speeches, spoken word, and so forth. The announcement of the Black Excellence Leadership Alliance is our new affinity group. And Mark Henningsen, also known as the mother of Milwaukee Juneteenth, was the event's keynote speaker and also related to our own Michael Rogers, our interim DEI vice president. Our recruitment team staffed a booth at the 2024 Milwaukee Juneteenth celebration on the 19th to share information about the college. And they were also represented in the parade, and students and staff gave away giveaways along the parade route. I know Jeff Hollow left, but I am so grateful for him coming back at the time when the college needed him to complete our budget process. So it was great to have him back, and he's back happily retired, though, I have to say. So, and given this is my last meeting with all the board members, I just would like to say, read some comments to all of you. I'm filled with a deep sense of gratitude as I reflect on the last 10 years as serving as the president. And you've heard me say this, it's been the greatest honor of my career, honestly. It's been a privilege to work alongside all of you. You're so dedicated, committed, mission-driven, a group of individuals who care deeply about the college like I do. Your commitment to the shared vision and mission that we all have has really been instrumental to the success over these last 10 years. From initiatives to foster student access and success to dealing effectively with a pandemic, including no layoffs or furloughs, expanding our online presence to serve students, and ensuring that they had technology as well during that time. And yes, I am proud of this, having a balanced budget with no deficit spending for 10 years. And that's what it means, is like, we have found ways to really balance that budget without having to go into our reserves, which would then be called deficit spending. And so we didn't do that for 10 years, which is amazing, really. We have great budget managers and we have a great finance area, as well as all my leaders, making sure we did that. Expanding our facilities, and those of you who haven't been here and then walked around, you see what a difference it's made. And just all the other initiatives that we've been able to accomplish together. I'm very proud of everything that we've done here at MATC, and I really believe and I'm confident we have laid a very strong foundation for Dr. Cruz to come in, and it will ensure the prosperity and growth of this wonderful institution. As I move on to the next chapter of my life, I know that this college is in very capable hands, and I'm really looking forward to seeing all the great things that continues to happen here. Thank you for the trust that you've all placed in me over the years. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to all the good news that I'll be hearing about and reading about in the newspaper. And just, I wish you the very best. So thank you very much. That concludes my report.
Thank you.
Legislative matters report.
Thank you.
Welcome. Nice to see you in person.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh,
Hi.
you should have my report in front of you. It is a brief report, but with quite a bit of substantive matters for information this evening. Picking up on artificial intelligence, I will report that there will be 2 study committees during the legislative interim. One will be on artificial intelligence, so there will be yet another legislative committee in that space to be determined. I do expect technical college representation to be on that committee. Final membership has not been announced yet, but in looking at who has been proposed, I do expect technical college representation there. Also, there is a study committee on the future of the UW system. As we all know, the UW system, has been in the news quite a lot over the last 2 years, especially. So that committee is rounding out as well. And I do expect the technical college system will have representation on that committee, because there's certainly some overlap there with the direction folks might be looking at specific to the future of UW system, particularly in that two-year college space, transfer agreements, et cetera. So both of those committees will keep folks busy during the legislative interim, just as a refresher on study committees. Study committees are established by ballot through a joint legislative committee. They are chaired by legislators, but they also include non-public member, or they include public members, so non-legislators. So it's a diverse group. The intent is to tackle a scope and then provide recommendations at the end of the meetings to the legislature to consider. And then it's up to the legislature to determine if they want to move legislation or not. So sometimes, you know, it's a very bipartisan effort and legislation is moved, and sometimes legislation is not moved. So this is truly a study committee with individuals from both the public and private sector representing on the issues at hand. So stay tuned there. Also, the Legislative Audit Committee, which is another joint committee in the legislature, they are able to authorize the Nonpartisan Legislative Audit Bureau, which is a service agency to the legislature, to do all sorts of audits. And recently they approved an audit of state agencies specific to diversity, equity, and inclusion activities. So that would include the Wisconsin Technical College system. That was just approved. Work, you know, is going to be occurring over the next couple of months. That report will come back to that legislative committee and recommendations will be made. So no legislative advocacy moment right now. This is just more of an informative moment, but that audit will be starting here soon, if not already, and it will hit all of the state agencies. So from, you know, technical college system, UW system, as well as agencies like Workforce Development, Department of Public Instruction, et cetera. Some very good news for the college in terms of funding. The Joint Finance Committee released just under $1.7 million a few weeks ago to support increases for our oral health programs. And so all colleges were eligible for the funding, and we were able to secure just under $1.7 million as part of that budget appropriation. And so that will allow for investment into those programs, which will ultimately allow for more students who are currently on wait lists to enter into those programs. So that is now moving forward. In terms of federal updates, Laura Bray has been working closely with Senator Baldwin on an initiative to secure just over $1 million for the MATC Student Parent Scholarship Program. So that's in process, no other action at this point, but been in close contact there with Senator Baldwin's office. And then last, here at the local level, you know, we've had a number of discussions and there's been a lot of community feedback and input on the Arizona School of Nursing in terms of, you know, coming into the city of Milwaukee. The city has approved that zoning change. So it was, you know, really kind of two parallel discussion points, right? The zoning aspect of that, as well as just the discussion point of whether or not folks, you know, wanted to see a for-profit nursing school come into the city. So the city has approved that zoning change just, I think, a couple of days ago or within the last week. So that part has been complete. And, you know, they really had to move forward with that aspect of the request. So with that, I will complete my report and take any questions if you have any.
Let's start with Dr. Najeeb. Any questions, Dr. Najeeb?
No.
Any questions in the room? Director Oldmore.
Thank you. The audit activities, I know in a lot of states, there's been attacks on universities and organizations around DEI. Is this similar to what has happened in other states with trying to audit those activities?
The University of Wisconsin system, through legislative action, will be making internal modifications to some of their activities. I'm not an expert in that space, but that's certainly been front and center. And so there will be some changes in that space. The deliberation and debate over DEI practices specific to the technical college system has not yet occurred. the audit that now has been approved to look at the Wisconsin Technical College system, because it's a state agency, certainly could, you know, look at, is the system following what's statutorily required of them, et cetera. So really too early to say more than that at this point. But as we know, it's been a headline, you know, for quite some time in general.
Victor Morrow-McClintock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to briefly respond to the DEI portion. Certain levels of funding and certain other areas of dollars sent to the UW system has been attached to making these modifications. And it's been heavily debated about what those modifications need to be, how much we need to do it. And the phrase stay tuned was used as well. And so I do expect there to be other modifications on the horizon or other modifications proposed, given the makeup of the legislature or its potential change that may or may not materialize. However, the attitude has been stay tuned, because this is just the start of the debates that happened previously were just the start of a continued plan. I'll say it that way, if that makes sense. I was going to ask more about the Senator Baldwin's dollars with the 1.1 million in conversations with Laura Bray. If you could go into.
Hello. So we had a donor who did a small investment in establishing a parent scholarship. And we would like the opportunity to grow that. And the proposal was essentially to allow us to grow it over the course of 3 years while we get interest from the local philanthropic community. And the donor who seeded it will also make an investment in it to help to leverage some private donations if we get it. So the total budget is in the $1.4 million range over the course of that 3 years. And our hope is that, and I can send you the exact proposal just so you have it, so you can see how it breaks out. But our hope is that we can start to build that as one of our kind of signature funds, because our student parents do have needs that are very unique and sometimes even beyond what Pell and other support can do. And it really does. We're working closely with the Student Resource Center and the other pieces that are coming together to support students more. And we think this could be a great companion.
Is there any, if I may, Mr. Chairman, is there any degree of flexibility about how the dollars could be used? Has that been a part of the conversation?
You know, when it's a particular fund at the Department of Education that we'd be applying to. And you kind of put together a concept and then you get the details of how it can be used once you get the actual appropriations. The way that we wrote it was specifically for direct student assistance. So it's not for staff, it's really to go directly to students. And we thought that would, I mean, it kind of increases the likelihood of being supported, and that's where we thought that we could just have some success in terms of getting to this point. The point that it goes now is Senator Baldwin puts it forth in the committee that she actually is the chair of, which is great on this particular appropriations, but they have to balance tons of requests from all over. And so the fact that she has told us that she's advancing it is great news, but it's not for sure. And then of course the federal government has to adopt a budget, which last year took a very long time. So we'll continue to update you. But it was promising, and she actually is knock on wood advancing the exact amount we requested. So far she hasn't reduced it, which is also good news.
So if and when dollars are received, then we can talk about the flexibility of how they're used for students.
Correct. But in the proposal, we specifically didn't limit not only to tuition, we said to support students more broadly in the application so that we give ourselves the most flexibility possible. Yep.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is our diversity, equity, and inclusion report, and Dan McColgan will be addressing this tonight.
Okay, thank you. We are going to just provide an overview of the new 5-year plan that starts in June of 2024. And again, the WTCS and the Office of Civil Rights, Department of Education, we developed this plan. It's overseen by the WTCS, and we do provide updates at least usually a couple times a year on how we're progressing. So this is the 5-year plan that begins in July. We want to give an overview and invite any comments or feedback for improvement or suggestions to it. So I know in the previous meetings, we spend a lot of time talking about the employment goals, but there's also a student goals section too, to make sure that our student population matches the community we serve, and also that the graduation rates are consistent with enrollment numbers. So on the first slide, this the first couple of slides are going to talk about employment goals. And as you know from previous meetings, our goal is to balance the employment of faculty and staff to match the availability of our general population with regard to race, sex, disability status, and the like. In addition to that, both Dr. Martin and the board have encouraged us not only to try and match our general population, but match our student population. And over the course of the last 5-year plan, we started tracking several metrics that basically kind of measure how we're doing in terms of our employee representation versus our student population. So in terms of some of the initiatives that support attaining this goal, we talk about tracking underrepresented populations and developing strategies to address them. In terms of job postings, we've expanded our reach in terms of diverse websites and partnerships with organizations such as Hispanic Professionals of Greater Milwaukee, who we are a sponsor organization for them. We've done some things in terms of interview committees, trying to ensure diverse interview committees provided anti-bias training, those types of things, and also including questions on diversity in the interview process. There's a huge effort afloat in terms of our faculty credentials and trying to make sure that we haven't set the bar too high, given what we provide here. And the Faculty Credentials Review Committee is reviewing those to make sure they meet minimum standards, but also don't unconsciously prejudice or bias minority candidates. We recently embarked in a survey to get updated in terms of the representation, because the census data aren't always the best. We have seen a trend in recent years for people not disclosing their race, gender, or disability status. So recently we just launched for a 3-week period a survey inviting people to voluntarily update their information. Next slide, please. And so again, this is kind of the regulatory component where we compare our representation. This is for full-time positions at MATC versus the district workforce. And again, the district workforce is those working age people between the ages of 18 and 65 in the greater Milwaukee area, in the areas we serve. Generally, we do pretty well on this metric. A couple of things to point out in terms of where we were when we started the last 5-year plan in 2019. Our total minority representation was 39%. You can see as of March of this year, we are hovering close to 44%. So that's a pretty good, strong increase over the course of the last 5-year plan. An area that we've improved, but still need to improve more, obviously, is Hispanic employee population. You can see we're lagging behind the district workforce by almost 3%. We have improved from 8.4% in 2016, but there is still additional work to be done there. Next slide, please. And then this is we have the 7 occupational groups. Again, MATC numbers for full-time employment versus the district workforce numbers. We're exceeding the district workforce in 6 of the 7 categories, with strong performances in several of the areas. And when we look at where we were in 2019, executive administrative personnel, we were at 44.6%. We've bumped that up to 50.38 over the course of the last 5 years. With faculty, we were about 30.5%. We've moved up to 33.86. And a couple of the bigger movers was faculty non-professionals. We were at 44% in 2019. We're now at 52.97. And technical and paras, we were at 31% in 2019. That we're now at 40.88%. Next slide, please. In terms of full-time employees and student population, and this is a metric I know Dr. Martin has set some additional goals beyond what's required by the regulatory agencies, and we have metrics that we track on the institutional scorecard, not only just full-time employees, but we track full-time and part-time employment levels on that. But you can see here the numbers of employees. This is full-time employees versus the student population. And you can see we've got some work to do in 3 of the 5 categories, or 3 of the 5 categories that are showing negative numbers. One point of clarification on the student number for Hispanics. I know that's a very important number for the college as we're trying to attain the status of a Hispanic serving institution. That number 17.20 reflects the number of students in degree seeking programs versus the HSI number, which is first time degree seeking students of Hispanics. And I think our recent numbers on that have been in maybe the 19% range. And there's yet a third number that's not on here. All students, regardless of whether or not they're in a program, degree, diploma, or whether they're just taking a class, I think we're closer to 25% on that. But that 17.2% is those students in degree seeking programs. Next slide, please. So I believe in the last meeting, there was an interest expressed in trying to drill down on how we're doing in some of the academic pathways. We were able to capture the faculty data for full-time faculty as of the end of March. And this represents full-time faculty percentages in those respective pathways. We really didn't have an apples to apples comparison in terms of students, but I did have a number, I think, for fall of 23 for a lot of these categories. And this reflects not only degree seeking students, but others. And in terms of the student population in business, you can see faculty's 31%. The enrollment of all students, I think, was 73% minority. For CREATE, we had 61% minority student enrollment. Gen Ed, 60%. Healthcare, 72%. Manufacturing, 35%. Serve, 68%. And STEM, 61%. So those gaps are noticeably bigger than some of the other gaps that we looked at in terms of comparing employee population to student population. But we do have the ability to drill down by each race within those categories and track progress.
Putting these 2 slides, this slide and the one before it together, I think maybe a data point for us to look at in the future. The slide before it talks about all employees. And what we might be wanting to look at is actually student-facing employees. Because I think that's what you start to see in the pathways, because those numbers were dramatically different than they were before, because we included all employees. And there may be certain employee groups where we have larger representation of minorities than in some of the student-facing ones. So that could be useful data for us. Thank you.
Next slide, please. Okay, so in terms of employment affirmative action goals, A second major goal is to hopefully increase and develop awareness, develop initiatives to build and enhance DEI cultural competency. We do have a number of initiatives that are continuing on into the new 5-year plan. We do have a comprehensive DEI programming, and we have a lot of grant money to support this. In the most recent fiscal year, we had 860 employees participate in one of those initiatives. As most of you are aware, we have rolled out the Institute of Advanced Leadership over the last 2 years. And I think we've had 5 cohorts go through, and this is geared towards transforming and creating a more inclusive culture at MATC. The program will be expanded next year to include faculty. We've had the Inclusion Champions Initiative, where we had 20 faculty and staff participate through a graduate certificate program through Penn State University that's aimed at increasing the cultural competency and those types of things, and having those employees also be able to share what they learned with others. We've had affinity groups for a number of years and want to continue with that. And then we also have the DEI plan, which was launched in 2022, and the 4 pillars of change that includes climate, employee experience, student experience, and institutional commitment. Next slide, please. In terms of student affirmative action goals, we look to balance program enrollment by race and sex and disability with those percentages of the general population. And we have a number of programs, not the least of which is Guided Pathways, to support that initiative. To provide additional support, we've had a number of scholarship funds, the Chakota Scholarship, the MATC Promise, the Adult Promise, all of those programs in terms of minority student representation and support. 80% of the students served are students of color for those 3 programs. We also have the Restart Debt Scholarship Fund, which helped over 500 students, approximately 85% of whom were students of color, receive additional financial assistance. And then we also have M-Cubed and dual enrollment. Those programs are aimed at the high school students, and they can take credit programs for which they can receive college credits, and also college credit and high school credit. And over 50% of the students participating in that program were students of color. Next slide, please. In terms of program enrollment versus the district population, you can see we are in the positive on all categories. The one concern, and I'm not sure how accurate the data is, would be with the disabled population. And the district population is over 5%, and our number is at 1.91. When we started at the last 5-year plan in 2019, we were at 4.83%. And so we were really concerned what was happening with the numbers there. And I don't know, we had reached out to student accommodations, and in terms of the number of students they are serving, and their numbers are closer to the overall enrollment patterns. And because on the data that we had, where people voluntarily declared, those numbers were around 350 or 360 or so. When we reached out to student accommodations, they are seeing probably approximately still 750 students. And these are all program students, so I'm not sure, we probably need to dig into that one a little more, but in the data that we do report to the WTCS, these are the numbers. So there's more digging and research to be done there, but the numbers that students are filling out on paperwork are not consistent with the number of students that we're seeing go through student accommodation services. Next slide, please. In terms of graduation rates, one of the things that Office of Civil Rights, DOE, and WTCS requires us is to track is the percentage of students graduating by each minority category, and we need to compare that with our enrollment. And so you can see here, the data in general, I think is pretty good. One thing to note, in terms of overall minority students, at the start of the last 5-year plan, we had 46% of all students graduating were minority students. And when we look at where we were at the end of last fiscal year, we're at 54.56. So that's over an 8% jump in the number of minority students that are graduating on a percentage basis. The other number to note in terms of Hispanic students, I think we were at 16.04 in 2019, and that number has increased to 21.23% in 22-23. Next slide, please. So in terms of other student goals, there are a number of metrics on the institutional scorecard that we're measuring to try and improve equity gaps in terms of completion rates between students and ethnic groups with the highest percentage of success and those with lower rates of success. And so on these numbers, lower is better. And you can see for fiscal year 22-23, we achieved a rate of 19%. And the goal for fiscal year 24-25 was 15%. And so there is longer term goals on the institutional scorecard that go out for several years. So this remains a high priority with the college. The other metric captured here is basically to reduce the gap in first-time degree seeking minority students completing their program in 150% of the time. So the goal for fiscal year, or the achievement level of for fiscal year 22-23 was 39%. And when we went back to the start of the last 5-year plan, we were at 28%. So moving that number by 10 percentage points, I think over a 5-year period is good progress and speaks to a number of initiatives that have gone to support that. And I think we've seen that even in some of our enrollment numbers, the number of students returning from semester to semester. I think we are on a positive trend in that regard. Next slide, please. So some of the initiatives that we have to support this in reducing the equity gap. Obviously, there's guided pathways in terms of Moonshot for Equity. There's a number of initiatives that have helped improve these numbers. Some of them have included eliminating holds on student accounts with small balances, Stormer success grants, student success grants aimed at providing additional financial support. And we also have developed a cultural competency faculty academy, and they have created linguistic flexibility course competencies for English courses that can be adopted to other academic disciplines. So those are a few of those initiatives. And I believe that's the last slide.
Any questions, comments from the board?
I have a comment.
Dr. Reynolds.
I think that we could work better with our partners like HPGM to make sure that we're getting quality leads. So we're posting the jobs and reach more Hispanics. This number is alarming of how we're having less employees, Hispanic employees, when we have such a great pipeline through them. So if I can be of any help with them, I'm more than happy to reach out and connect. I talk to the president on a regular basis.
Okay, good, thank you. Anyone else in the room? Director Case?
No.
Okay, Director Najib.
Yeah, thank you for your report. Very extensive. But I still have a question. Considering the number of minority students we have, and considering the competition between all educational institutions, could you briefly explain to us how are we attracting the minority full-time faculty employees to our institution?
So there's a few different approaches. And I think I mentioned briefly that we do have, this is the first year that we have a sponsorship partnership with Hispanic Professionals of Greater Milwaukee. And we do have unlimited postings, unlimited access. So in terms of whether or not we're fully utilizing that, I mean, we could certainly follow up with our talent acquisition team to see that that's being maximized. We have increased the number of job fairs that we're doing on campus to bring people on campus to get a feel. In fact, we're doing one tomorrow. And we are trying to make use of other search agencies like MilwaukeeJobs.com. It has access to over 200 educational diversity links that we try and use. We are using the Chronicle of Higher Education, and they do have, I believe, specific avenues to pursue faculty members of particular race and whatnot. And then there's other associations like on healthcare, the Black Nurses Association, those types of things. But we are doing a number of things as to what's effective and what's not. Probably talent acquisition could speak more to that, but it is a focus, and our numbers are increasing when you look at where we were in 2019, but are they increasing fast enough? And I guess you could probably say in terms of Hispanic faculty and Hispanic employee representation, that number is still lacking, and we're even below local labor market force with regard to that. And we've got a bar set higher than that in terms of what we're trying to do with enrollment. And again, I think everybody can appreciate the focus on trying to have our workforce look more like the students we serve, and that is a priority.
Are we competitive with the compensation and the benefits compared to other educational institutions?
Yes, we do market analysis all the time. We do move the wage ranges based on market data for this year. The new fiscal year that's going to start in 24-25, the maximum of the faculty salary ranges for full-time faculty is going to be increased by 5.5%. And so the last time we moved those, I think, was July of 2021. So it has been about a 3-year stretch since we've moved those. So that is, we do pay attention to market data, and we're seeing the need to move our faculty, our full-time faculty salary ranges by 5.5%.
Thank you.
Dr. Moore.
I was just curious about the data point around the CREATE pathway and how low it is for minority full-time faculty there, because we often hear about that in manufacturing. And the CREATE was much lower. It was 9.8%.
Yes, it's the biggest difference of all the pathways.
I'm wondering if we're doing something targeted, because it feels like a real opportunity there to think about how I think about just, my students in MPS and how many went into creative pathways following school, or that was such a big area. So I think there's a real opportunity there.
Yeah, that kind of jumps off the page.
Yeah, it does.
I thought there was another, Director Burrows.
I was wondering if the talent acquisition person was still on the Zoom call. No? I don't know if I could see him or.
I'd be interested to find out if with the partnership that we have with HPGM, is it that we're not getting quality leads, or we're not getting any responses at all, any leads whatsoever, or just to get some feedback to see if it's on us or if it's on them? What can we do to improve that?
I will make it a point to follow up with our VPL and our talent acquisition manager to see, because we've got a significant investment, obviously being a corporate sponsor,
Oh,
so
I
we
know.
want to make sure that we're maximizing our
Absolutely.
resources there.
Yeah, we gotta
and our
get the return,
investment.
yeah, we gotta get the return on investment, absolutely.
Director Baker?
And then, you know, when we have these unique partnerships, and again, talent acquisition isn't here for us to ask the question of, and maybe as a board, we can find out a little more about this, but I hope we're doing more than just posting
Mhm.
things. You know, I hope that we are personally appearing at, you know, events, you know, that we show up at, you know, and have like face-to-face communication with people.
They have had an uptick in job fairs that and those types of events that are occurring, and I know in the last couple of years, we've significantly increased what we're doing on campus here with open houses and open house type job fairs. And like I said, we're doing one tomorrow, and I think a lot of the emphasis is on faculty positions where there's vacancies.
Right, and just to be clear, you know, when it's about going to someone and not having someone come to you.
Like-
And so when we have partnerships with organizations, it's about us going there.
Like HPDM does a number of events throughout the year. And at all times, so not only do they do after fives, they do things in the morning where we need to have a presence so that we can start. Communicating and reaching out to those potential employees. So if we don't go out and make ourselves visible, they forget about us. That's what I always say when I go on network for Antigua. You know, if I don't, they forget about me and then they don't know. Same thing with MATC.
Yeah, I think we'd like to hear more detail about what we are doing at our next board meeting and whatever ideas there are for realizing on our investment in various places. Let's hear more about what we're doing proactively. Okay.
I know Director Foley has mentioned in the past in terms of African American male faculty, and I think we started tracking this metric a few years ago. And I think when we looked at where we were in fall of 2020, it was 4.17 in terms of full-time faculty, and as of March 31st of this year was 5.48, an improvement, but probably not as strong as we'd like to see.
Yep.
Sure. Only our director of talent acquisition is back in the meeting. There's a follow-up question.
Okay.
I think
Director Burks?
Yeah, so the question about for talent acquisition was to follow up with Dr. Najib's first question is like, how do we approach? And I figured that would probably be the best person to ask. My actual question right now is for, I think, slide 4, skill craft. I just want to make sure my understanding of skill craft, what falls under there?
Yeah, so there's only 8 positions, and those positions are usually hired for the Milwaukee Council of Building Trades. And we probably haven't had a position turn over in over 5 years, so it'd be like the painter, electrician, plumber, carpenter, those types of positions. So there's 8 positions total in the college, and they don't turn over very much.
So I will refrain, but that has been a 0 since I've been on the board, and we always get the same answer from a technical college that has a big focus on skilled trades. I find it completely offensive that we have 0 for the entire now 6 years, full 6 years that I have been here. 0. We graduate people, we put workforces out there, we encourage non-traditional students into those programs, and we don't have a single employee that matches that. And we continue to get the same answer. Not even one.
So yeah, that will be my follow-up question is how can we like build partnerships to get people in positions for those skilled trades?
When's the last time that we had an opening in that group?
I can get you that answer. It's been several years.
Yeah, I mean, I've been at the college for almost 3 and I have not had a vacancy in that area. So I can definitely confirm at least there has not been one in the last 3 years. Can't speak to what has happened prior to that, but I do agree with Dan in that there has not been any turnover. So if you can't really diversify an area if you don't have a vacancy.
Is there room for like part-time positions?
Or
there,
apprentices, we have apprentices. I'm gonna stop because I
No,
brought this
'cause
up
it's
multiple
full-time.
times over the years and it continues to frustrate me. And there's opportunities for us to grow that area should we choose to, and we have made a choice not to. And that is my perspective, given how many times we've brought it up and talked about it.
So are you suggesting that we should have apprentices working
We could.
with this group?
Yeah,
Is that
I'm
the
just saying,
idea?
if we were genuinely serious about actually diversifying that group, there are multiple ways that we could do it. The entire 6 years that I've been on the board, I've heard the exact same answer. I've raised the exact same thing. I had multiple conversations with our, director of apprenticeship in the past. There was support from that side of it. We have made no investment in it. And that's fine. If that's the college's decision, then I will stop, but we continue to see zero.
So when we hear from you at our next board meeting, let's hear some ideas about what we can do through apprenticeships or anything else to start making headway on this number. I mean, we're not going to kick somebody out.
But people do retire.
But
Right.
people do retire and people do leave, and the apprenticeship idea is, I think, a good one. Are we on the verge of needing another person? I don't know how that works, but let's hear our best ideas on what we can do there as a target. Director Owen Moore. Oh, I'm sorry, Moore Mukundi.
No, I didn't have.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
You look so
Chairman.
much alike. I get you.
I haven't all the time.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm wondering if there is a current like mentoring program in place in that area, the skills trade area. In that department, is there a mentoring program or is there somebody saying, look, I'm still here because I'm looking for the person behind me to pass the baton to? And if there isn't, is that a method in which we could develop and diversify the leadership in that area?
Yeah, we could look at it. I mean, most of the people have to have the journeyman level, and I don't know that there's people in the existing workforce that are at that level. I mean, that's something we can mention to the director of facilities and operations to see if maybe there's a way to grow our own. If there are people that have some of those designations or credentials. Or maybe they're partway there, but they're not all the way there.
Exactly the kind of thinking we're looking for. So
Yeah.
let's make a real effort to come up with some ideas there. All right.
I think we had questions in town acquisition. Do you want to ask questions about?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to know, what kind of involvement do we have with HPGN? And are they sending us any quality leads? Do we just post any openings that we have with them? What kind of relationship are we having other than the membership and the listings? And are you going?
Yeah, so we're doing the membership. We're doing our job listings. We're attending events that we're invited to that we're aware of. We attended 3 or 4 of their events over the past year that they had for their members. We just set up tables just to get the word out. We didn't have a lot of interaction. Some people came by, said hi, grabbed a water bottle or what have you. But those are some of the things. We did connect with them. We're having a job fair tomorrow, a career recruitment event. So we also reached out to them to let them know about that. So those are the opportunities that I'm aware of that we have. Certainly, we are open if there are other but that's what we have been doing over the past year.
Okay, thank you. And they do have a lot of events throughout the year that you could attend just to network and get the word out about it without necessarily having to have a table. So you could just go network, mingle, pass your business card around. But I'll reach out to HPGM as well to see what else we can do.
Okay, sounds wonderful. Thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
I have a very quick one. In what sense is guided pathways an equity gap initiative? What does that mean?
In terms of guided pathways, there's kind of the infrastructure set up where students can be more successful by identifying a match maybe between their interests and skills, and then to provide them the support and guide them through there. I mean, that was one of the things is to help improve retention, improve success, help reduce equity gaps by having the support pieces in place. And then maybe others in this room that can speak to it better than I can, but from an HR perspective, that's kind of how I see it.
Anything else from the board? This time. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep,
That was
thank
very
you.
thorough.
Next is the enrollment report. Dr. King and Dr. Wang, or whichever of you wishes to come.
Yes. Good evening.
Welcome.
Yeah, this is the report we submitted next Monday. I look at the number this for today is basically the same trend. So I don't have any additional dramatic change from last week. So basically, we are on target with our trending upward compared to last year in terms of our fall enrollment. And actually, in terms of summer, we already over our target for summer. So for fall, we're on target in terms of the year to date, in terms of FTE. And then the second page is new. I just want to let you know, this is the one, the for your request at last meeting. We try to show you the completion application conversion rate from received application to registered application. We're still early on in the registration cycle. So that's why the percentage right now, we also show you the comparison between this fall and the last fall. I'm sorry, I'm on the second page now. So this is showing you we're a little bit ahead of last year, but our goal is 10% higher than last year. So we still trying to get things going so we can reach that goal for this year. The following page showing you a little bit more detail in terms of comparison for FTE and headcount. So again, we're showing very strong momentum right now. So it's compared to 2020, just, we're still using 2020, the pre-COVID year as our, or the COVID year as our benchmark. So compared to that year, we are above 5%, and then compared to last year, we're 16% ahead of last year. So it's still showing very strong trend right now. Same with the headcount. If we flip to the next page. Yeah, similarly, like 18% higher than 2020, and then 23%. So the next page show you the recess ethnicity. This one is still about everybody. I did look at also there was a request from last meeting to see among full-time post-secondary students what's the percentage look like, because this is among everybody enrolled. So as of now, the percentage is, but it's still fluctuating. That's why I kind of hesitate to share, because it could give us like a false positive. Right now it's about 24%. I know our goal is 23%, but it's very fluctuates because it's so early on in the application and registration process. But they do different. I just want to know among all students versus among post-secondary full-time students, the percentage of Hispanics do vary. So that's why we always just add this next slide, is just to keep reminding us what's the definition, what's the trend. Based on that definition, the goal for this year is 23%. And then we're shooting for 25% for the next fall in 2025.
hopefully we can reach that benchmark in a year or two. And then the last page is just to showing you the distribution by the pathway. And then how much FTE generated by pathway. So that's the end of the report. So any questions? Yes.
Director Baker.
Yeah, how do we generate FTEs in community ed?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. So like this slide, if you go back, I don't know who's driving. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so this one we purposely says it's post-secondary FTE because community education is considered non-post-secondary.
Right.
So I can answer two sides, right? For post-secondary FTE, we use just credit, of course, like 30 credit per FTE. And then we do have some community education, just so you know, right now is not only those basic skill ELL, they also have some like traffic safety. Those from WTCS perspective is considered post-secondary. I know it does not make sense. So that's why sometimes we have to say post-secondary, they're credit bearing post-secondary, meaning that towards degree, diploma, but there are also something like continuing education, the basket weaving we always use as example. Those are considered post-secondary from the WTCS perspective, and they calculate the same way as the other credit bearing. But then the other community education, most of the community, that's why you have so few numbers here, because most of the community education is non-post-secondary, the basic skill, AB, ELL, those are counted using attendance hour. So you have to attend at least 4 hours to be counted as 1 credit and so on and so forth. There's a formula, very complicated formula to convert attendance hours to credits, and then using that credit divided by 30 to get FTE. In general, in the past, 10% of our overall FTE contribute from the ABE ELL area. So that's, we didn't show that here, but it's in our regular monitored FTE reports that people are watching.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions?
So if we graduate more manufacturing people, we could eventually have instructors that could replace retiring instructors.
Excellent idea. How are you going to bring that about, Director?
Thank you.
When I looked at graduation, I retooled by makers.
And there's such a need. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta start with the middle school and high schoolers. Get them interested now. Skills trade.
And what it is, they don't know what that is. So.
We have great facilities here. We have all the teaching tools. Just don't have the enrollment.
You gotta
So
market it. Gotta do a better job.
I think one of the things that Dr. Cruz has talked about is to have the people who are in our high schools and middle schools, to the extent we do that, getting the support of the principals and the parents as opposed to counselors, which has, I think, been our focus in the past as one method that might help with that. But fundamentally, we've got to find a way to market. And I think there is still, you just said it, there is a lack of knowledge about what that kind of work is and what it's not.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
We are noticed to speak about the community education update right now and not our marketing and high school relations.
That's a very good point.
Sorry.
No, thank you.
Well, actually, we have a PBS.
Yeah, we have PBS general manager.
Yeah, right. Sorry.
We just skipped over.
So we should pursue that conversation offline. Okay.
And in our meeting at a future time.
And in our meeting at a future time. Let's go to the general manager's report from PBS. I'm sorry, am I missing something here?
140? No.
No.
That
You're
was
next.
the enrollment.
Cannot delay it any longer.
I know. Can we?
Wow, you're on
so first. You're on.
Yeah.
Save the best for last. Right? So I do have really good news to report that we reached our $6.4 million goal in May. Thanks to the hard work of a great team. And as of today, we're at 7.3 million.
which is record-breaking year for us, which only means our goal goes up next year. It's like, what have you done for me lately? You may have seen our countdown, our Count Me In campaign. You would have to be under a rock not to have seen it, because we have had it everywhere. It started about 6 weeks ago. Our goal was to attract 744 new members to reach our elusive goal of 40,000 members. As of today, we have 180 to go by June 30th. So we're really close. So tell your friends and neighbors, call in, go to the website. We were at Juneteenth and produced 6 live cut-ins throughout the day, along with a half-hour program encapsulating the day, which ran at 9 p.m. that night. And one of our students, Sade Moore Beeman, co-hosted the day with Black Nouveau host Earl Arms. And I'm so spoiled, man, that day was so hot. It was really hot that day. I celebrated my first year that week. I started here June 12th, and Juneteenth was the first thing that I went to. And so Juneteenth will always have a special place in my heart for that. I love the community. I love the work. I love the station, the college. So I'm definitely in the right place. And something at the end of my report, they want you to see from Juneteenth. So I try not to make you fall asleep before then. Last season, Live at the Lakefront series of 8 concerts, which was produced by our students. We put that together, 1 song from each band, and compiled it together for 1 show, for 1 program that's going to air July 13th. It's also going to air July 11th, 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. for those times. And soon this month, we'll start to collect some information from a variety of stakeholders in order to determine what is most important to our audiences to inform our content and engagement strategy going forward. The last time we did this was 2019, so it's definitely time. In July, we'll send an electronic survey to our members. 85% of our file has email address associated with it, which is incredible. I mean, staff has done an incredible job of getting email addresses. Really nice to be able to communicate with members that way. The other 15% will receive a paper copy that they can return. And then starting in August, we'll have a series of informal listening sessions in the communities that we serve to gather information about what people are most proud of, what they'd like to see improved, what should we know, what jewels should people know about. And this is not about us, it's about community. We want people to tell us, what should we know? What should we be talking about? What are the things that we're missing? And people are always really proud to say what they're most proud about. And they're just as eager to say, we'd like to see this improved. So it also gives us a chance to have topics that we know people are really interested in. We'll start to host small groups of members, sustainers, plan givers, underwriters. So we segment people to come into the studio too, so that we'll have small kind of focus groups. So our hope is to make a wide swath of contact with people to get information back, not just from community members, but also from community businesses, from underwriters, from just the community at large. So if you have ideas about places that we should go, please reach out. I know you guys won't have any ideas. And our transmitter is getting a much needed upgrade with a new UPS, uninterrupted power supply, and the installation of 2 high voltage breakers. All of our channels will be off the air from midnight to 6 a.m. on July 10th, but it'll completely be worth it once we get upgrade, and thanks to the college for that. The presidential debate will be on Thursday with PBS coverage afterwards. And the VP debate has 2 tentative dates, July 23rd or August 13th. So we'll look forward to both of those things. We're still pretty deep in planning and working with PBS on what they plan to do. They will have a delegate discussion the weekends before. We don't know if it's gonna be Saturday or Sunday. We still don't know which day it's gonna be, but they are working on that and we will be producing that. Judy Woodruff will be hosting that. We also have the town hall that I've been talking about that won't happen until September. And I won't talk any longer, but I'll show you some video. So whoever's running video, go right ahead. I promise the end is worth it. It played earlier. All right. They start setting up at 6 a.m.
So today we're going to be taping a lot of just short breaks, 30-second breaks, minute breaks.
What's going on, everybody? I'm Earl Arms.
And I'm Sade Moore Beeman, and we're coming to you from Milwaukee's 53rd Juneteenth celebration.
At 1 o'clock is our big production window, 1 to 1:45.
We're looking at camera 2?
Correct. Both of them are looking at camera 2.
Switch mics.
Yep. And I'm Zazie Okwata, and we're at the 53rd annual Juneteenth celebration.
Education around what blood is and what blood donation is, and also focus on
And if you just move some stuff around.
Go ahead and put things, just tighten it up on the bottom of there. Yeah, just put just like that. Okay.
Rooster.
Should Rooster watch TV?
Yeah, he likes PBS. When I turn it to any other channel, he's based me to go right back to PBS. Some of
All right, folks, we're at the end. 53 years. Sade, tell me your favorite part about this year.
My favorite part about this year is just like every year, seeing all these beautiful brown faces come together and celebrate for the cause of the emancipation.
And to all of you, on behalf of the Milwaukee PBS and Black Nouveau team,
Happy Juneteenth.
Where else you see a chicken that watches?
Very nice.
Very nice.
Wow,
Awesome.
I'm very impressed.
I want to see that at the next APTS conference.
Okay. Good.
All right, thank you very much and congratulations on exceeding your fundraising goal. Next agenda item is the community education update. Sadiki Shahaku.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Chef Floyd. Good evening, board members and man. I hear in the last board meeting, there was a request for us to develop an advisory committee for community education. So we've been doing some research on how to get this done. Fortunately, it was done before. So there was some precedent. And therefore we have begun identifying community leaders and community partners who would be interested in representing various constituencies. We include immigrant and refugee organizations as well. because we're getting some large numbers of students in those areas. We intend to schedule our first meeting in early fall, and we plan to have 2 meetings every year. Each semester we'll have a meeting. We already have an infrastructure for advisory committees. Ms. Fifi Wilkins is going to coordinate the activity for us. There are templates of community education meetings that we are going to use as our templates. We follow the same guidelines that advisory committees for programs are using. And we'll provide minutes from every meeting. We would like to identify what priorities that the stakeholders have with regards to how we support our students in community education. Any questions? Looking forward to it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we're getting nearly to the end of our long agenda for tonight. And I promised I would do something toward the end. So although Dr. Martin kind of beat me to the punch, I want to acknowledge that this is your last meeting with the full board. And at least as president of the college. As you near retirement, I extend on behalf of the whole board our heartfelt gratitude for your leadership through a decade of growth and innovation and achievement in some very difficult times. In addition to the Institute for Advanced Leadership we talked about earlier, there's the MATC Promise, the Adult Promise, MATC Restart, Guided Pathways, Moonshot for Equity, the Higher Educational Regional Alliance, to name a few. You also nurtured a lot of important relationships, the hero relationships, Mr. Hervis, the Freighter Health Partnership, and of course, Jonah and Chakota. There are many more accomplishments, many more relationships, too many to mention. Each is worthy of study and appreciation in its own right. To take them all in at once is overwhelming. The beauty of each tree is lost within the breathtaking impact of the whole forest. So all we can do is say, wow, and thank you. In retirement, things will be a little different. Well, not entirely. The sun will rise, as it did on the more than 3,650 days of your presidency.
Sometimes.
But the path in front of you will be different and perhaps less certain on a daily basis. We hope and are confident that this new path will lead you to a whole world of new discoveries, new passions, and new accomplishments, because that's who you are. As a remembrance of your time and as a celebration of the endless possibilities of your future, Director Baker is going to present you with a gift from the board. So sit still for a minute.
I'm actually sweating.
This is my cue.
This is your cue.
So Dr. Martin, the board, as a small gesture of our incredible appreciation and the time we spent together, would like to present you with this. This is a photograph from an MATC graduate whose name is Libby Sutton. I had quite a bit of communication with Libby as we decided on a photo, and she wanted you to know that for her, capturing this photograph was the first time that she felt she had represented a piece of architecture in a graphic and artful way, which began her focus on this type of specific work. And she sees architectural photography as her passion. She thought it was very fitting, since this was the first, to be both at your retirement, the end of one phase of your life, and the beginning of you discovering all your new passions in retirement. I also do want to call out De'Allen Cooper Davis, who is a current photography student who did the hard work of hooking me up with Libby and making the gorgeous print for us as well. So on behalf of the board.
Oh my God, thank you so much.
Could you change the scene? I would like to see Dr. Martin.
Yes.
There you go.
There you go. That's fine.
We did realize that after the fire in your house, you might need a few new things for your.
I know,
walls.
I'm just like, oh my God, there's like nothing on the walls. So this is great. Thank you so much. So appreciate
Are we gonna
that.
take a picture with, afterwards?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. Very thoughtful.
Thank you.
So last two items for the night are our next event, July 8th, the MATC District Board Organizational Meeting, where we will elect officers for the next year. It will be in this room. Are we offering a Zoom option? No. Okay, if you need to do Zoom, fine, let Beth know. As I said, 4:30 p.m. This is usually a very short meeting, and unless there's some emergency, there won't be any other business. Director Burris.
Has a question about the organization meeting. Is that the time that we also establish the date and time that we'll do the rest of the year?
For the board meeting?
Yeah.
That is an item we could discuss at that time. If you have a suggestion, I suggest you get that out before.
Okay.
Let's not wait till the meeting.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, and the last is, will anybody move to adjourn this meeting?
Second.
Moved by everyone and seconded by everyone. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're not gonna go all in favor?
No.
Best place for the picture is probably around this MATC.
Yes.
You know, I've been meaning to, I've noticed your ring months ago, and I've been meaning to ask you about it.